Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is episode 10 of High Street Sports. We have made it to week 3 of the college football season, week 2 of the NFL season. A lot of fireworks in both. We'll dive into both of those. We'll start with college football, talk about the top 25 once again, and then we'll move into our NFL talk, which is going to be, a week 2 preview, go through some of the games there. My name is Chris. This is John Ross. John Ross, what's up, buddy? What were your overall thoughts on weeks 3 in college football and week 1 in the NFL?
Yeah, pretty good week of college football. Texas and Bama was a really good game, and then got to see the Colorado train keep rolling. NFL, good first week, some high-scoring games, some surprises too. But yeah, glad to have full weekends of football back, and excited to get into this week.
Yeah, man, it is truly the best time of year. I know we keep saying that, but it can't be stated enough. This is the best sports season of the year, and we are full speed in it. So we'll get right started with the top 25 of college football. We'll jump into it. Number 25, Iowa versus Western Michigan, 3:30 game on the Big Ten Network. Iowa looks to continue building any sort of momentum that they can going into the Big Ten schedule. Western Michigan brings in a team to Iowa looking for an upset. What do you got here on this game?
It's Iowa minus 28.5, over-unders 42.5. I'll take Iowa in this one, but I don't think they'll cover. Their offense, like we were expecting in the preview, has been a chore for them. Defense is solid, but yeah, minus 28.5. I'll take Western Michigan on that, and I'll also take the under on this one. But yeah, Iowa, regardless.
Yeah, I think Iowa gets it. They will get the win here. It might be ugly, like you said. I don't really have much faith in Iowa to cover either, so I'll agree with you there. Western Michigan will cover that game, but Iowa takes the win there. We'll move right along. Number 24.
Seems like the whole state of Iowa has a gambling problem, both Iowa State and Iowa. So you got to wonder if the coaches in Iowa are betting the unders on these two.
Yeah, well, that would piggyback off of Vince's theory about Ryan Day from week 1, but that's neither here nor there. Number 24, UCLA versus North Carolina Central. I got UCLA in this one. Don't really think Central has much of a chance.
Yeah, there's no line or anything. UCLA, the first week in the top 25, I think they'll get a really big win, blow the Eagles off the field.
Yeah, so we'll go UCLA across the board there. Moving on, number 23, Washington State versus Northern Colorado. Washington State's a team that, as usual, kind of has a pretty explosive offense like they are known for up there. They continue to build momentum. They face Northern Colorado. I have Washington State in this one. What do you got?
Yeah, Washington State got a big win last week, home against Wisconsin, knocking Wisconsin out of the top 25, and they got a good quarterback too in Cam Ward. So yeah, I think they'll keep it rolling in this one and get beat Northern Colorado by a big margin at home.
Yeah, an unfortunate game last week for Luke Fickell in Wisconsin. A lot of people, I don't know if it was a fabricated sense of excitement there in Madison, but it's going to take Luke a year or two to get that program turned into what he wants it to be. Not the result they wanted last week, so they'll look to rebound this week. But Washington State is building some momentum in a deep Pac-12 in their last year, which is kind of upsetting that this is the last year of that conference, but it is a deep one, and they look to continue some momentum against Northern Colorado. Moving up the list.
If there was ever a team where it would be a process to implement the air raid offense, I think Wisconsin's one of them.
Yeah, it's like we've always said here, it's a team built on their running backs, but that quarterback position is something that Luke Fickell's going to have to change, and that was very evident last week. So moving up the list here, a team that has momentum and a team that has zero momentum. It's number 21 Duke versus Northwestern. Northwestern has just looked abysmal in the first couple weeks, as to be expected with all the stuff going on there in that program. I got Duke big in this one again. What do you got?
Yeah, Duke big. If this were a hazing competition, I'd take Northwestern, but we're going to take Duke since it's not.
And that's all that needs to be said about that.
Hey, real quick, though. You skipped the U.
I'm getting there. They're somewhere on this. What? All right. Where are they?
They're 22.
Do they play a ranked game?
No.
Well, the NCAA has let me down on this one.
Wow.
Please fill me in since I missed it.
Well, it's Miami Hurricanes at home against the mighty Bethune-Cookman whatchamacallit.
Oh, well, that's why I missed it, because nobody cares. The U big.
Yeah, Canes big in that one. Big win last week against A&M. Got the Colt have their pitchforks and torches out, and we love to see it.
Oh man, yeah, the U seems to be building some momentum over a overhyped A&M team that, in my mind, I don't think had any business being ranked in the top 25 preseason. Anyways, Jimbo Fisher looks to be a flop. Hasn't really done much of anything.
That $80 million buyout might look more friendly as the weeks go on.
Yeah, it's been bad in A&M. Jimbo seems to be, all talk. He's got that one season with Jameis at Florida State where they won a national championship, but everything since then for old Jimbo has not looked very good, especially since arriving at College Station.
Yeah, big win for the U, but hashtag still not back.
Yeah, no. The U is not back. There's another team that claims to be back. We'll get to them later. Number 20, North Carolina versus Minnesota. North Carolina looked pedestrian on offense against App State last week. App pushed them to the brink, taking them to overtime. North Carolina was able to pull that one out, thankfully at home. And they play a Minnesota team that is, PJ Flex got them rowing the boat. And the defense looks like they're, a defense that's to be reckoned with. What do you think about North Carolina versus Minnesota this weekend?
Oh, yeah, it's got North Carolina -8, over under 50. Yeah, Carolina looked like the Carolina of last week against App, completely relying on the offense to score. Thank God Omari and Hampton showed up to Keenan that day with 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. But, yeah, playing a really good defense this week in Minnesota. Hopefully, if you're a Carolina fan, you really hope that first week defensive performance against South Carolina wasn't just a fluke, because for Carolina to do anything this year, they've got to be good on that side of the ball to help Drake man that offense out. But, yeah, I think Carolina pulls out the win here. I think they win by a touchdown, though, and don't cover.
Yeah, they're going to have to protect the football, and they're going to really have to be on top of their offense in order to pull this one out. This is no slouch. This might be a bit of a trap game for North Carolina, but we'll see if the Heisman hopeful can will that team to a victory here. I'll take North Carolina as well in this one. I don't think Minnesota has quite enough on offense, but there again, App doesn't really have much on offense either, and they took Carolina to 2 overtimes. So crazier things can happen, but I'll take North Carolina here in a close one against the Golden Gophers. Moving on, number 19, Oklahoma at Tulsa. This could be a bit of a trap game for Oklahoma as well. You go to Tulsa in a 3:30 kickoff. What do you think about the Sooners in this one?
Yeah, Vegas doesn't seem to think it's a trap game. It's Sooners -27.5, but we'll see how they do on that. They kind of had to limp to the finish line against SMU last week. They won 28-11, but they almost let them back into the game a couple times. The defense did its job, but Oklahoma's going to need more out of their offense if they want to do anything this season, especially with the Red River rivalry coming up in a few weeks. But, yeah, I think Oklahoma wins this game. I don't think they cover, though.
Yeah, I'll take the Sooners as well. They did look a little concerning last week, but this week's a new week. Who knows if Tulsa can give them a game or not. But, yeah, I got the Sooners in that one as well. Moving up the list, the hottest show in college football. Game day will be there. Fox Big Noon kickoff will be there. It's Colorado versus Colorado State in an early excitement game for the Buffs. Shedeur Sanders, Prime, and the boys look like they're going to roll here this year. We'll see if it's, if they're 1 year ahead of schedule or not. But Colorado versus Colorado State, what do you think?
Yeah, Colorado -23, over under 16.5. I think Colorado wins and they cover that, and take the over on that one because I think Colorado is going to score a lot of points in this one. They kind of took a little bit to get going against Nebraska. Nebraska, to their credit, has a good defense, but it seems like they made some second half adjustments and figured the defense out and blew them off the field in the second half of that game. But yeah, Colorado keeps it rolling, getting ready for the showdown with USC, which I think is next week.
I believe it is too. And I agree with you. I think Colorado State, you know, they're going to have to get creative on offense and really be stout on defense. Shedeur Sanders looks like he could be, in my opinion, maybe the best quarterback in college football. I mean, the dude looks unreal right now, and he's putting up video game numbers in the first two. So I got the Buffs, and I got the Buffs big in this one. This is a big game for Colorado, probably the biggest game and for Colorado in recent memory as far as the hype around it goes. You know, maybe not as far as the opponent goes, but a lot of excitement for the Buffs. Like I said, College game day and big noon kickoff will be there this weekend, so a lot of eyes will be on Prime and in the Buffs. So Buffs big in this one on a national attention game.
We'll move along. If you're a Nebraska fan and listen to Matt Rule's press conference yesterday, just know you got to wait 4 years before you're competitive.
Yeah,
those are his words, not mine.
Yeah, and you look at the track record. That's what everybody wanted to point out. First two at Temple weren't good, but then apparently it showed up. Baylor, same story.
You'll be in a good position, then he'll leave.
Panthers, not so much of the same. So he kind of fell flat on his face there, and continues to not look great in Nebraska.
Used car salesman.
Yeah, it's got a lot to look out for, Huskers fans. So number 17, Ole Miss versus Georgia Tech. Ole Miss, you know, looks like a team that could be building some momentum. You know, Georgia Tech comes to town. It's a night game. What do you think there?
Yeah, Ole Miss minus 18, over under 63. I'll take Ole Miss on that one and to cover, being at home. Georgia Tech's 1-1, but don't know too much about them. I don't think they're any kind of contender in the ACC. But yeah, Ole Miss beat a good Tulane team last week, albeit without Michael Pratt playing. But yeah, they got the win by 17 in New Orleans. So I think they keep it rolling going into their SEC schedule starting next week.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't really think that Georgia Tech is going to, you know, pose much of a threat to Ole Miss here. You know, I got Rebs big in this one. Moving on, number 16, Oregon State versus San Diego State. Just another barn burner here. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, Oregon State minus 24.5, excuse me. Over under 49. I take the Beavs in that one. I think they cover. They look really good so far, albeit against lesser competition. DJ Uiagalelei, like we've said, looks like a different QB. So, yeah, I think they'll keep rolling in the loaded last season of the Pac-12.
I agree. You know, I don't know much about San Diego State, but we'll keep it rolling with the Beavs here. Moving on up, number 15, Kansas State at Missouri. Kansas State continues to look solid here in the early going. They have a noon game against Missouri, an SEC opponent. What do you think about Kansas State here?
Yeah, it's Kansas State minus 5. Missouri, they're 2-0. Road environment, but I do think the Wildcats get the win here, and I think they do cover.
Yeah, I don't, 2-0 for Missouri, but Kansas State being the defending Pac-12 champs, Big 12 champs, gaining some momentum here. I look for Kansas State to improve to 3-0 here. Moving on, number 14, LSU at Mississippi State. Early SEC matchup here for the Tigers. What do you think about this one?
Yes, LSU minus 9.5. Mississippi State's they got a good team. They're 2-0. Won in overtime last week against Arizona. They've got a really good quarterback in Will Rogers. They don't run the air raid anymore with Coach Leach, fortunately passing away earlier this year. They're more of a run-first standard or modern offense now. So LSU's run defense will definitely need to be at the par, but especially if they get that run game going, getting into play action. Will Rogers can sling it. He's got, I think, 11,000 passing yards in his career. So, yeah, I'll take LSU to win this one, though. I think they win by 10 and cover. Hopefully we see more creativity out of the defense. I know they won 72-10 last week, but it was against Grambling, and defense didn't exactly dominate like you would hope they would. Wish I'm going to keep banging the table, stop trying to turn Harold Perkins into something he's not. Let him be a pass rusher. It's what he's good at. But yeah, Tigers win this week. It'll be a close one for the majority of the game. But yeah, I think Tigers pull away near the end and win by 10 and cover.
Yeah, this is an important game for LSU. It's an SEC road game. They had a feel-good victory last week after a disappointing week one, and they need to, really continue to focus on trying to get better on both sides of the ball. And then, like you said, LSU's defense, they're trying to do some different things with Harold Perkins, and I think I agree with you there. They need to let him, be dominant, and when he's dominant, it's when he's getting after the quarterback and trying to get in the backfield. So turn him loose, turn that LSU defense loose, and let him go play, free and easy on the road. I think LSU wins this game. Not sure if they cover or not. I don't really know enough about Mississippi State, but it's a important one pretty early for LSU. You want to see them go on the road and kind of make a bit of a statement there. So LSU, I think, gets the victory in that one.
Big week for their secondary because, like I said, Mississippi State's quarterback can sling it. They don't run the air raid anymore, but he can get that ball to his receivers, move it around. So big week for the secondary after a really bad performance in week one against Florida State.
Absolutely. Moving on, number 13, Oregon versus Hawaii. Ducks big in that one. Don't know anything about Hawaii. Don't know if they're any good or not. Is there a line for that one at all?
Minus 35.5 Ducks.
Okay.
Quack.
Yeah. I think Oregon gets that one and should get that one pretty easy. And I think they cover. Ducks big. Quack. Moving on, number 12, Utah versus Weber State. Another just scintillating matchup there in the deep Pac-12. What do you got on that one?
There's no line for this one. I think Utah keeps it rolling. I doubt they'll, even if he's ready, I doubt they'd bring Cam Rising back this week for a game like this. Let him get healthy to when they get into Pac-12, which I assume is next week. But yeah, Utes big in this one.
Yeah, I don't see anything out of Hawaii there. I mean, Weber State there that would give him any trouble. Utes big in that one. I agree with you. No reason to play Cam Rising against this team. Make sure he's healthy going forward into the meat of that schedule. Moving on up, number 11, Tennessee visits the Swamp. They go to play Florida. The Gators, are a team without much of any identity right now. Don't know what they're really good at on offense. Don't know what you're going to get out of that defense. It's a really, really strange time for Florida when they, had I don't know if they had, a great expectation going into this year, but they would have liked to seen a jump under Billy Napier, but doesn't really seem to happen just yet. Tennessee is a team that, looks to build some momentum here going into, the meat of their schedule as well. What do you got on the Vols and Gators here?
It's Tennessee minus 6.5, over-unders 58.5. Not really a good week last week for Bazooka Joe and the Vols. They really sleptwalked through the whole game. I think the halftime score against Austin Peay was 6-3, and they won 30-13. Plus they were home opener at Neyland. You'd think they would be a lot more fired up for that, and they would have blown them off the field, but they didn't. With that said, I'm going to take the Gators in this one. I do not believe in Tennessee. Joe Milton's looks like he was made in the lab. I just don't think I think he's just big. He's got a big arm. I think that's all there is to him. I think the Swamp will be fired up for this. Florida does have a pretty good defense this year, and I think they win a low-scoring affair in Gainesville.
Yeah, I actually don't hate that at all. I said the same thing about Joe Milton in the offseason and, after that bowl game and things like that. I mean, the dude, just like you said, he's a big guy, strong guy, has a rocket arm. But that's about where it starts and stops with Joe Milton. If he, had the tools necessary, he would have been successful way earlier in his career. And I don't see him being the one to lead Tennessee to where they want to go. That being said, I don't know how much I trust Florida's offense either. I think this one might be, pretty ugly. I think this is a coin flip to me, but I'm going to go Vols in this one. I think they squeak it out by a field goal. I don't. Who do you know who Florida's starting quarterback is right now?
I think his name is Mertz. I think his last name is Graham Mertz.
Graham Mertz.
He transferred from somewhere. I can't put
Wisconsin.
my finger on it. Okay, Wisconsin. Yeah, but if it comes down to it, I think an ugly game in Gainesville. I just take the Gators if it's that kind of game, which I think it will be.
Yeah, which is fair, and I agree with that one. I think it is going to be an ugly one. However, I think Tennessee has a little bit more on offense to push them past that line. Hopefully, Joe proves me wrong here. Not a confident pick, but I'm picking Tennessee that one if I have to go either or on that. So we'll move on. Number 10, Alabama at South Florida, which that's taking me some reading and rereading. Am I reading that correctly? Alabama at South Florida?
Yeah, it's at South Florida.
Okay. All right. Alabama takes an interesting road game here and goes to Alabama. It goes to South Florida, coming off a disappointing loss against Texas. What do you think about Bama here?
Yeah, I think you'll see a pretty pissed off Bama team for this one. It's minus 32 tied. I think they cover that and blow USF out. But like we said, the questions for Bama, they're like the quarterback, man. They got a really good defense, but Jalen Milroe, he does some things really well, and some things he doesn't do well. So interesting to see. They keep rolling with him. I think they will. I don't trust Tyler Buckner, who's behind him, the transfer from Notre Dame. I think Ty Simpson, who's a freshman, I don't think he's ready yet. But no, I do think I know from what I've seen from Bama fans, they're kind of a similar thing with LSU and Harold Perkins. They want the coaching staff to let Jalen Milroe do what he does best, which is run the football. Like the dude's huge and he's got wheels, and let him pass it when it's at like don't overcomplicate it for him and make him just become a pocket passing quarterback. But all that to say, Bama wins this week, moves on to getting into the SEC schedule next week.
Yeah, I think Bama wins this game by 100. It's going to be a pissed off Alabama team coming off a loss, and I can't see them being too happy that they have to travel to South Florida to play that game. So you hope that Alabama comes out and doesn't look disinterested and potentially lay an egg here. I don't see that happening, but coming off a loss to Texas at home, and then you have to travel to South Florida the next week, that's not really a get up game. So, we'll see. Nick Saban is a guy who can get his team ready to go and play anybody. So we'll see how they do there. But I do think Alabama wins by 50 probably in this game. So a lot of quarterback questions for Alabama, and that's the same questions that they had coming out of camp. By all accounts, that was not a very competitive quarterback battle, which you don't love to see if you're Nick Saban, but it is what it is, and they'll roll with what they got. And this week they got South Florida, so Bama by a lot. Notre Dame has a matchup, number 9 Notre Dame versus Central Michigan. It's a 2:30 game in South Bend. What do you think about the Irish?
Yeah, it's Notre Dame minus 35.5. I think they cover that. 34.5. I think they cover that. A little bit of a chore through the first half last week against NC State, especially with that long rain delay they had. But second half, man, they look really good. Sam Hartman looked great. Definitely seems like a different Notre Dame team, because that kind of game last week seems like it's something in past years they would have lost or squeaked it out at the very end. But second half, man, they made adjustments. Sam Hartman started picking that the good NC State defense apart. Notre Dame's defense looked really good. I think they keep rolling. Get ready for the Buckeyes to come to South Bend next week.
Yeah, Sam Hartman is exactly as advertised. He's a cool customer. Doesn't seem to get rattled too easy, and really knows what his place on this Notre Dame team is, and that's to be a leader. And he looks like he's doing that for Marcus Freeman and the bunch up there in South Bend. I think they keep rolling. You would think from Notre Dame's perspective, perspective, they would like to come out and look crisp here against Central Michigan, before what you said, the Buckeyes come into Columbus next week. Coming to South Bend next week. But Notre Dame, I think, takes care of business here and moves on to that matchup. We'll move up to number 8. Washington and their prolific offense goes to Michigan State in what is a very interesting scenario here for Michigan State and Coach Mel Tucker. You would think that would be a distraction there. This is a game that could get away from Michigan State pretty easily, given everything that's going on up there right now. What do you think about Washington?
Yeah, it's -16 Huskies, over-unders 57.5. Definitely not a team you want to be playing when you've got the distractions that Michigan State has, because like we've talked about, man, Washington's offense is a show. Michael Penix Jr. and those receivers. I'd take the Huskies in this one. Think they cover. Think they blow Michigan State off their own field.
Yeah, it might not be pretty in East Lansing this week. Mel Tucker and the Spartans have a lot of stuff going on in that building. It's going to be upon the players to go out there and kind of put that stuff to the side and try to get the job done against a pretty good Washington team. So they're going to have their work cut out for them. But I agree with you. Huskies are going to go to East Lansing and absolutely cover and blow the doors off of the Spartans. So unfortunate times for Michigan State. Reports came out earlier this week that he was fired.
What a fall from grace.
Yeah, no doubt. They went back on that and suspended him. But, we'll see how that plays out. But I think we know how this week is going to play out. Huskies big in that one. Moving on to number 7, Penn State visits Illinois in an early Big Ten road game. Penn State looks good. They continue to build on that success that they've had early in the season. What do you think about the Nittany Lions?
Oh, yeah, man. They look good. Drew Aller looks good. The defense looks good. At Illinois has a good defense. They were one of the best defensive teams in the country last year. They have 2 stalwarts at defensive line, 2 guys who are probably taken in the first round next year's draft. I think one of them's last name's Newton, but whatever. But yes, Nittany Lions -14.5, over-unders 48.5. I'll take Penn State in that one, but I don't think they cover. I think they win by 10 or somewhere in between 10 and – regardless, I don't think they cover. I think they win by at most 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think this could be a bit of a test for Penn State. I think Penn State's, looked really good in the first couple of weeks here. As you mentioned, Drew Allers looked pretty good, and their running backs as well. But this is Brett Bielema has built a bit of a scrappy team in Illinois. Good, I don't think is the correct word to describe Illinois, but much better than they have been since the Lovie Smith era. So I think this could be an ugly one early, maybe in the first half. It's a pretty close game, but I think Penn State's athletes pull away from the Illini in the second half. I think you're right there at a 10-point, 14-point game. I think Penn State will probably win this one by 2 touchdowns, and I'm thinking it's going to be a couple scores in the third quarter that propel them to that total. But I got Penn State in this one in a bit of a tricky game in Champaign. Moving on, the number 6 Ohio State Buckeyes fall another spot in the polls from number 5. They face Western Kentucky in the shoe. Western Kentucky is going to bring a pass-heavy offense. They're going to look to throw that ball around a little bit and see if they can add to the big play bugaboo that Ohio State's had over the last couple of years. Ohio State is a team that it looks solid for the most part on defense. But the offense, they've named a full-time starting quarterback in Kyle McCord. Ryan Day came out yesterday and made that announcement. So the Buckeyes have, some clear direction at the quarterback position, which is something that I think they needed. And, this Western Kentucky team, like I said, is going to try and throw the ball around. Ohio State's going to need to get pressure with their defensive ends, which is something that they have not been able to do so far this season. All the pressure on the defensive line has come from Michael Hall Jr., it seems like, who is an absolute dog. But Ohio State's going to need to really shore up the defense on this one and, show attention to detail. What do you think about the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's Ohio State -29. Like you said, really like we talked about last week, really good. They've named a full-time starter going into next week's game against Notre Dame. Like we said for Notre Dame, hopefully same thing goes for Ohio State. They don't get caught looking ahead to next week. But, yeah, Ohio State's secondary is really going to get some work this week because Hilltopper's quarterback, Austin Renoff, anybody knows this, led the college football in passing last year, had 40 passing touchdowns, and will be in the top 5 of all-time passing yards when he's done this year. But, yeah, I do think Ohio State wins. Don't think they cover, though, because minus 29, I think they win by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's been a chore for Ohio State in some respects on offense to really get the flow of what they're doing, and I think a lot of that has to do with the quarterback battle that they had in the first 2 weeks. You would have liked to seen that cleaned up before the first game of the season, but that's neither here nor there. Ohio State has made the distinction that Kyle McCord is the guy going forward. No knock on Devin Brown, but the winner of the battle was pretty clear. Kyle was a more consistent one, and this is going to be a big game for Ohio State moving into that matchup next week in South Bend. You really need to see both sides of the ball click, and I think with a full week of Kyle McCord as the absolute guy taking those reps with the ones for the offense, one game plan, because as I mentioned in the Ohio State wrap up this past week, it really seemed like there were 2 separate game plans when Kyle McCord and Devin Brown were in the game, and I think that did hurt Ohio State in a lot of ways on offense in the first 2 weeks. So I'm interested to see what the offense looks like under Kyle McCord and Kyle McCord only. Hopefully, that goes well. I hope Ohio State covers, and I'm going to say that they will. I think this week could be the week that we see the fireworks that we're used to out of Ohio State. I don't think Western Kentucky's defense is as good as their offense is. So I think Ohio State has a chance to really flex on Western Kentucky and build some pretty good momentum going into South Bend next week. I'm gonna pick the Buckeyes to cover. Not only because I want them to, but because they need to. So, Buckeyes make a statement in this one going into South Bend. Moving on to the second hottest team in college football, number 4 Texas and the mulletless Quinn Ewers led offense face Wyoming off of the biggest win of the college football season so far. They looked really good last week in Tuscaloosa. Both sides of the ball were humming. Quinn Ewers looks, he's played unbelievable in the game last week, and he looks to keep that going. Number 4 Longhorns against Wyoming. What do you got?
Cowboys versus Longhorns. Longhorns minus 29. Take them in that. Take them to cover. Like you said, they look really good both sides of the ball. Last week against Bama, big win in Tuscaloosa. Now, we both picked them in the preview to be in the college football playoff, and if they keep playing like that, they're going to prove us right. Defense looked amazing. Their defensive line might be one of the best in the country. Mm-hmm. Like you talked about Quinn Ewers, he was spinning that thing, especially in the second half. But Texas keeps it rolling into this one. I'm not sure when the Red River rivalry is. It may be next week, if I'm not mistaken. But Texas keeps it rolling.
Yeah, Texas big against Wyoming here. It's like I said, the second hottest team in college football behind the Buffs, in my opinion. So they look to keep that momentum going.
Not yet back, but the closest to being back they've been in quite some time, in my opinion.
Yeah, not yet, but keep on this trajectory, and I might admit it. Moving on to the third hottest team in college football.
On the doorstep of back.
Yeah, almost back. Number 3, Florida State at Boston College. Jeff Hafley and Boston College are really struggling right now. And this is not a welcome sight if you are Jeff Hafley in Boston College. Number 3, Florida State is hot, and they look pretty damn good in Tallahassee. What do you think about this matchup?
Knowles minus 26. I'll take that. Knowles big in this one. They look really good. I think next week they play. I think next week is the Clemson game at Clemson. So getting ready for that one. But Florida State looks really good. I think they keep it rolling this week.
Yeah, I think the Noles will have no problem in Boston College and take that game and move on. Moving up the list, number 2, Michigan faces Bowling Green. Michigan is again a team that you would have thought you would have seen more fireworks on offense out of. That hasn't been the case yet. Defenses look pretty good, but the offense still kind of looks a little sloppy here in the early goings. Michigan, I don't think has a problem with this one. Michigan wins this game against Bowling Green.
No, it's Michigan minus 40.5. They'll win. Moving on.
Yep. And then the last game on this list, number 1 Georgia faces South Carolina. Tell me about the line here.
It's Bulldogs minus 27.5. Over under 54.5. I'll take them. I don't think they'll cover. I think South Carolina will get some garbage time touchdowns. But yeah, Dogs big in this one.
They've not Dogs have not even been anywhere close to tested yet this year, and it won't happen again this week. Dogs will win this one, and I think they'll blow out South Carolina here. And I think you could be right with the garbage time points, but I don't know. I think Georgia wins this one in a runaway, and they'll move on to hopefully some at least SEC teams down the road that could maybe give them a go. But
you probably have to wait until November for the Tennessee game for that, and that might not even
matter.
Good. Yep.
Nope. So, all right, that wraps up this week's exciting top 25 schedule. Not really a whole lot to talk about there, but that's it. We'll move on to week 2 in the NFL. We're coming off the heels of the news that Aaron Rodgers has torn his Achilles. He is done for the year. Really a disappointing start to the season. 75 seconds, I think, is all he lasted in that game for the Jets. Really not what you wanted to see as a football fan. A lot of excitement around the Jets this year and Aaron Rodgers and, what they could do. And a very unfortunate, take the air out of the stadium moment there in week 1, the first Monday Night Football game of the year. So, tough scenes there, but the Jets were able to pull that one off. Overall, what were your thoughts on week 1 of the NFL season?
Yeah, good first week. There were some surprises, some high-scoring games, some not-so-high-scoring games. But, yeah, happy the NFL's back. And, yeah, you just feel for the Jets fans, man. It seems like they can't have anything nice. Feel for Aaron Rodgers because you wonder if this might just be it for him. I don't think he'll go out like this. Achilles, though, I know, especially at his age, tough injury to come back from. But, yeah, did you see what Garrett Wilson said? He said to him in the locker room.
Yeah, that's tough. And, coming from a guy like Garrett Wilson too, who, by all accounts is one of the leaders on that Jets offense as a young kid. Very excited, both Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson were at the prospect of playing together. And yeah, I mean, you got to feel for both parties involved and, class act for Aaron Rodgers. I know a lot of people have differing opinions on Aaron, but just you never want to see that for anybody.
Not a good week 1 for any of the New York based teams. All for different reasons.
In the same stadium, no less.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Good point.
Very tough. All right. So if you want to
just real quick on hopefully, I know our opinion probably doesn't matter, but can we please go to grass fields? Like, this is ridiculous at this point. The injuries on turf. I know I saw the NFLPA made a statement today saying they want to go back to grass fields. It's ridiculous that when European soccer teams in the World Cup comes to these stadiums, like, you change it to grass. Like, why don't you change it to grass for the teams that fills that stadium the majority of the year? It's my 2 cents.
Shame on the owners at a certain point too, because they preach player safety. The NFL preaches player safety, and these types of injuries just continue to happen at a pretty alarming rate. And I don't understand. I mean, I understand it from a business standpoint, I suppose. All these owners, and they want these stadiums to be multi-event stadiums, and I understand the trouble it takes to put a stage down on natural grass and host a concert in your facility, and then take that stuff up and have a playing surface underneath it that's damaged by the stage and whatever. But at the end of the day, those stadiums wouldn't be there if it weren't for the teams that are playing in them, just like you mentioned. And at what point is a league that preaches player safety going to listen to the players on a clear safety issue? And it's disheartening that we continue to have the same conversation year in and year out, and the NFL really shows no interest in doing anything to fix it. So like you said, the PA came out and said that they were all in favor of switching back to a natural surface. I think if you polled all of the NFL players, it would be a pretty unanimous choice of which one they preferred. So shame on the NFL for not listening in that respect. But like I said, I understand that it's a business on both sides. Not only for the NFL teams, but for the event space that is the stadium. So, yeah.
I mean, I was talking to somebody earlier this week who's a Tennessee fan, one of the guys I work with, and so Tennessee does have a turf field. Neyland does, but I found out that instead of those rubber pellets, which I think is a big cause for all this stuff, because that stuff is hard as a rock. Tennessee replaced it with something that's like a mixture of cork and coconut, I think. So it's a lot like softer.
Yeah.
So do something, because it's very obvious that these turf fields are have something to do with these non-contact injuries.
Well, yeah, and there's got to be an alternative. At least something that they can change. And if it's that little change in what you said is just replacing the, whatever the turf surface is, the tire or, ground up cork or whatever, you got to listen to the players at a certain point. And the players are screaming in one direction. And it's nothing seems to come of it. So how many more injuries like this do we need to see before they make a change? I guess we'll see, which is very disappointing, but hate to see it. And, like you said, I don't think Aaron Rodgers will call it quits after this one, but you got to think 39 years old and an Achilles tear is that's a big injury to overcome, but hopefully he can, and hopefully he can come back and end his career the way that he wants to.
Brady's not coming to New York, by the way, Jets fans.
Yeah, let's relax. He's got a pretty good gig off the field now. So I think
if you sacked him right now, he'd probably bleed plastic.
Well, he does look like a Barbie doll.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. It's a little unsettling, but anyways,
he can do what he wants. He's Tom Brady.
He's got the bank account to do whatever he wants.
Yeah. But yeah, on to week 2. We'll get into it. Thursday night football tomorrow night is Vikings at Philly. Eagles -6 over-unders 49. Vikings. Tough loss week 1 to the Buccaneers. No one really expected much out of Baker Mayfield then. Baker looked good. Vikings did not. Saw the video of Justin Jefferson toward the end. Tough week for him, not getting the contract extension worked out. And he had 130-something yards in the first half, and then only 2 catches and 10 yards in the second half. But, yeah, Eagles, they got the win at New England. Came down to the last play in that one, a lot closer than they were hoping against New England team who we weren't expecting much out of. But New England's defense under Bill Belichick typically, we would expect, they look good. But, yeah, in this one, I'll take Philly being at home on a primetime game, then I'll take them to cover that -6.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a very disappointing start for Minnesota. Not at all what they wanted. They've got a lot of question marks and a lot of things to clean up on offense. But Philly squeaked out, one in New England. But it's hard, to look at them and say that they've got, a bunch of questions. I'll take the team here that I believe in more, and that's Philly, and I will take them to cover in that one as well.
And then moving on to Sunday, Packers at Falcons. Green Bay -1.5 over/under 40.5. Green Bay looked good week 1. Not what I was expecting, and I think a lot of people whatsoever. It's going to be kind of crazy if, again, they've had a franchise quarterback sitting over there on that bench for years. Jordan Love looked good, man. The Packers defense looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
Just the offense looked good. But yeah, Atlanta, they got the win week 1 against the Panthers. Capitalized off a couple interceptions by Bryce Young and a fumble by Miles Sanders. So Desmond Ridder looked all right. Definitely didn't. The offense didn't really ask too much of him, especially after the first few series when he was getting sacked a lot. Short passes. The run game looked good. Bijan Robinson looked really good. And Tyler Algier, it's a two-headed monster at running back, it seems. But yeah, I'll take Green Bay in this one, and I'll take them to cover. If last week what we saw wasn't a fluke from both sides, Green Bay, and they could be a lot better than we expected this year, and the NFC North might not be out of the Packers' grip just yet.
I'm telling you, man, I don't know if we're seeing more of that success from last week come from Matt LaFleur, or if we're seeing it come from Jordan Love. But I mean, damn it if Jordan Love wasn't impressive, and it's like you said, he sat behind Aaron and waited his turn, and it would be pretty on brand if he came out and solidified himself to be that next guy for Green Bay. And I didn't love what I saw out of Desmond Ridder. I'm not high on Desmond Ridder as it is. I think he is a game manager in the highest sense of the word. I could be wrong in that one, but that's just my assumption from what I've seen.
As someone who watched the whole game, they definitely schemed it down for him where he didn't have to be, where all he had to be was a game manager, and he had a couple deep shots he got, but other than that, like you just said, game manager.
Yeah, and for them, it's going to come down to whether or not he can not turn the ball over. And if I was Atlanta, I would find every possible way that I could to get Bijan the ball. I mean, that dude looked impressive. But that being said, I'm more confident in Jordan Love in this one. And the Packers offense looked pretty damn good. So I'm going to pick the Packers in this one, and I think they do cover that 1 point.
Gotcha. Then next we got Raiders at Bills. Like we talked about first, Bills coming off a really tough loss. Josh Allen had a really bad week. 3 interceptions, all to the same guy.
Yeah.
Good week for that guy. Jordan Whitehead, I think his name was.
And he got every one of his incentives.
Yep.
In that one game. Good for him.
Yeah. But yeah, Bills are back home in front of the Mafia. Buffalo minus 9.5. Over under 47. I think Buffalo does get the win at home. They bounce back. Raiders got a big win in Denver last week. The offense looked pretty good. Jimmy G looked pretty good. But yeah, I'll take Buffalo to being at home in front of that crowd. I'll take them to get the win. I don't think they cover though.
Yeah, it's they look to be a bit of a mess on offense on Monday, and they're going to have to figure that out. That being said, I think Josh Allen is a smart enough quarterback and is self-aware enough to lock in this week and right the wrongs that he made on Monday. So I think Buffalo does bounce back, and I think they get this win.
Moving on, one of the bigger games of week 2. AFC North matchup, Ravens at Bengals. Really, really tough first week for the Bengals, but especially Joe Burrow, under 100 yards passing, coming off that massive contract he signed. Ravens got the win at home against the Texans. Kind of struggle a little bit, and sucks for them. They lost, and for the players, sucks. J.K. Dobbins tore his ACL. Really sucks for him. Was hoping to make a comeback this year and reestablish himself. But Cincinnati minus 3.5 in this one, over under 46. I'll take the Bengals in this one, take them to bounce back at home. I don't think they're going to take last week lying down, and I think they win a close one here at home.
Yeah, these AFC North matchups, man, they're always going to be a scratch and claw sort of game. And like you mentioned, man, it's just an absolute clunker for Joe Burrow and the Bengals in week 1. You expect more out of Joe in that one. And I think, again, just like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow is a smart enough guy. He's, a hell of a football player. He proved that by getting paid the way he did. And I think, they will bounce back. good for Lamar and the Ravens and picking up that week 1 win. Really, really tough scene, like you mentioned, for J.K. Dobbins. Spent all last year, rehabbing and getting back healthy from an ACL tear. Goes out last week and tears his Achilles. So really, 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 really rough break for J.K. Dobbins. Hope you get well soon and get back on the field. But I think the Bengals do bounce back in this one. I expect a pretty big game from Joe Burrow in a bounce back, here I am, don't forget about me type game.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look back at the Bengals last couple of years, Joe Burrow has not fared very well in the opening week of the season. So, you hope that it doesn't turn into a trend. But I think the Bengals and Joe bounce back in this one.
Yeah. Speaking of the Ravens, next man up mentality, big opportunity for former ECU Pirate Keaton Mitchell, who was an undrafted free agent, made the 53-man roster. And now with JK going down, he's probably going to be asked to get asked to do more. So big opportunity for him. Hope he does well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next game, Chiefs at Jacksonville. Week 1, first game of the season. Chiefs dropped a close one at home to Motor City Dan and the Lions. Really saw how much Patrick Mahomes missed Travis Kelce. That being said, I mean, a lot of his receivers didn't do him any favors. Kadarius Toney.
Jesus.
But yeah, Kansas City -3.5 over under 51. Jags, they got the win in week 1 against the Colts. Kind of a back and forth one there for a little bit. Anthony Richardson looked good against him, but Jacksonville was able to pull it out. Massive. If you haven't seen it, we'll have another Pirate plug. Probably the play of the week by former Pirate and all-time NCAA receptions leader, Zay Jones. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. But, yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything whether or not Travis Kelce's back this week, maybe using this injury as an excuse to hang out with Taylor Swift. We're also a pop culture podcast, folks.
If you didn't know, now you do.
Yeah. But I'll take the defending champs in this one. I think they bounce back. I know it's going to be hard going on the road in Jacksonville. A lot of Duval. They're going to hear that all day. I know that building is going to be rocking, but I take Mahomes and Andy Reid to bounce back and get a win on the road.
Yeah, I mean, if Kadarius Toney still had his DMs open, that would be a rough scene after last week. I looked; he does not have them open. But it's Pat Mahomes is, I think, figuring out that without the studs at receiver that he's used to having, and then you take out Travis Kelce out of the equation, that's an uphill battle. And they found out the hard way last week. I thought that game was very strange, but I think it played right into what the Lions wanted to do, and they got the job done. But yeah, shout out Zay Jones for making that catch, which was absolutely bananas.
Calvin Ridley looked good too for Jaguars. You can tell he's pissed off. He got suspended all of last year.
Yeah,
for the gambling.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I don't know. When was the last time the Chiefs started 0-2?
Been a while.
It's been a while. I don't think that. Oh well, geez, man, this is a tough one.
It's a tough one. It is.
Yeah. It is a tough one.
I think it will help. I don't know if you saw this, but the Chiefs did sign Chris Jones, defensive tackle, to a 1-year deal.
I did see that.
I think it'll help a lot. Him being back, anchoring the middle of that defense.
Well.
Yeah. But
yeah, I'll go Chiefs in this one. Pat Mahomes is too damn good to let something like that happen 2 weeks in a row. And I think it, I wouldn't have been shocked if we came out here and saw that Kadarius Toney got cut this week. That was just absolutely piss poor. But I'll go Chiefs.
Resulted in an interception too. A pick six, no less.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid, you got to make it known to that guy that he cannot do that again. And everybody has their days, and who's to say that he won't bounce back and have 10 for 100 and a couple touchdowns this week? But that was about as bad as you could get for a receiver last week. But Chiefs in this one.
Yep. Next we got the Chargers at Tennessee. Chargers -3 over under 45. Tough one in week one for LA. They dropped a back and forth one to the Dolphins, a high-powered offense versus high-powered offense. Titans lost week one by, I think, 1 point to New Orleans. Ryan Tannehill looked really bad. Derrick Henry looked like Derrick Henry stiff-armed another person to the moon, if you didn't see that. But, yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. I think they win, and I think they do cover that -3.
Yeah, the Chargers are another team that just kind of seems to be an anomaly week in and week out. You see the talent that they have all over that roster, and then you go out and they couldn't stop anything last week. A lot of points in that game. It kind of was reminiscent of a Big 12 football game. No defense really on either side of the ball. They've got some talented pieces in New Orleans, so this could be another tough game for the Chargers defense. But you got to consider who's throwing the ball in New Orleans, so anything can happen, I guess. But I'll go. Austin Eckler looks good. Keenan Allen again just proves to be one of the more consistent receivers in the game. I'll go the Chargers in this one.
Next up, Seahawks at Detroit. Detroit, big first win, first game of the season. Kind of backing up a little bit all the hype that was with them off season, the most hype they've had in a while. Mm-hmm. Seattle lost, got kind of blown out at home against the Rams team, who kind of an anomaly coming into this year. Geno looked pretty good in the first half, but the wheels kind of fell off of them in the second half. I don't know if you saw the video of him taking that drop back. He took 3 steps back, and Aaron Donald was right in his face, and the mic picked him up just screaming, "Oh, my God." Yeah. I'd probably say the same thing along with some other choice words.
I was about to say my reaction would have been a little bit more colorful than that.
Yeah. But no, in this one, I'll take Detroit at home. Ford Field is going to be a madhouse. Especially with all the hype the Lions have. Jared Goff looks good, man. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Jahmyr Gibbs, I know fantasy owners are hoping the Lions offensive coordinator does more with him, because the touches he did get last week, he looked explosive. Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's establishing himself as one of the best receivers in the league. But yeah, I'll take the Lions in this one. I think they do cover. I don't know if you saw it too, like C.J. Gardner-Johnson put out something about how he wants Lions fans to wear ski masks to the game, and apparently I don't know who sold them. Maybe the team did, but they're sold out of them. So a lot of ski masks in Ford Field on Sunday.
It's gonna get real shiesty in there real quick. I can't help but kind of like what I'm seeing out of Detroit. They've got
I like the head coach, man.
Yeah, I mean he is a guy that I think if you asked anybody, they would run through a brick wall for him. He's a player's. Yeah, if there's a wall left after he gets done with it.
Yeah.
But he's a player's coach, and they seem to be buying into everything that he's selling, and for good reason. That's and as you said about Jared Goff, it's a guy who was written off. It was a guy who came to Detroit, in a pretty bad situation, and the job that they've done, both he and Dan Campbell together, and the rest of the coaching staff it's nothing short of, pretty impressive. So it's hard to choose against them in this one, man. It's like you said too, Ford Field's going to be a madhouse. So I'll pick the Lions in this one.
Next one, another AFC South matchup. Colts at Texans, battle of the rookie QBs. This one, Indy is -1, so basically a pick 'em. Over 39.5. I'll take the under. I'll take the under on that one. Anthony Richardson, like I said, looked really good last week. He had 2 touchdowns, one on the ground, one in the air, and an interception. Dude's a monster of a man. He did get hurt at the very end. I'm not sure exactly what it was. So definitely something you don't want to see. You don't want to see early, and something Indy will have to keep an eye on. But yeah, he looked really good. CJ Stroud kind of struggled week one. He had a tough first game going into a contender in Baltimore, but I expect him to do better. And he did have over 250 yards passing, so I expect him to have a nice game, get his first touchdown here at home. But I'll take the Colts in this one.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Anthony Richardson looked, okay. I'm not sold on Indy. I think for the most part they looked pretty bad in that game last week. There are some bright spots though, a lot of things to look forward to. But on the other side of the field, you've got just about every question mark that you've got in Indy on the same sideline over there in Houston. But CJ did have a pretty good game. Like you said, he had a bunch of passing yards and looked pretty poised in the pocket for the most part. Didn't really ask him to do too much in that first game. Hopefully they expand the playbook for him a little bit. I'm gonna go CJ Stroud to get his first career NFL win this week.
Next one, Bears at Bucks. Tampa Bay is -2.5. Like we said earlier, big first week win for them. Weren't expecting much out of it. Baker looked good. The defense, who was mostly going to be their calling card, looked good. Bears looked really bad at home first week against the Packers. Some good moments from Justin Fields, but some bad moments too, especially the defense did not look good whatsoever. This one's kind of tough. Not really. I'll err on the side of caution, and since Tampa Bay is at home, I do think they get the win here, albeit an ugly one. I don't know if you saw Mike Evans. I know I don't know if you saw his interview where he basically said, since they didn't sign me to a contract, I'll be a free agent next year. I've never seen someone hit the sideline faster after scoring a touchdown in my life than Mike Evans on this past Sunday.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation, kind of how that's played out with Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. You're kind of seeing it play out, real time on the field, which is very interesting. To your point of somebody scoring a touchdown and by all accounts being one of the most important offensive players that the Bucs have had, minus Tom Brady, of course, in the last couple of years. So interesting to see that take a turn. And exactly right on Chicago. They look bad pretty much in all facets of the game. You can reference the flag behind me and call me biased all you want, but until they really make changes to that offensive line and it's got to get better. And until that happens, the Bears they're not going to have much of a chance. And defensively, they did not look good either. So for all the improvements, quote unquote, that they made in the offseason, it doesn't look like anything's coming to fruition. So I'll go the Bucs at home in that one as well.
Next up, NFC West battle, Niners at Rams. San Francisco is -8, over under 44.5. I would hammer the over on this one. San Francisco, they look like the best team in the league last week in Pittsburgh against a very good Steelers defense, blew them off the field very quickly. Brock Purdy looked good. I mean, he did what he was asked to do. Looked better than I thought he would. I was impressed with him. They just got weapons everywhere, man. You got Kittle, CMC, Brandon Ayuk, Debo. The defense is stacked. So Brock Purdy doesn't really need to do much for them to be successful. But yeah, and the Rams, big win at Seattle first week. They look better than a lot of people thought they would. But I'm going to take the Niners to keep it rolling in this one. I think they do cover.
Yeah, the Niners defense looks incredible. I'm mad at myself for not grabbing them in fantasy when I had the chance. Neither here nor there. They do look incredible though, and their offense looks good. Brock Purdy's another guy where really with that offense, the way that it's set up with the receivers that they have, and Christian McCaffrey looked, like the Christian McCaffrey of old. I think he's a guy that you can get away with being a game manager and just not turning over the ball. And I think, if they can do that for the majority of the season, they should be pretty good to go. But then you said, on the other side, the Rams were a surprise in week one, a bit of a pleasant surprise to their fans. But I think, San Francisco is a wagon. And I think, LA, the Rams are just in their way. And I think that's exactly what it is. I think the Niners win big.
And next one, Giants at Cardinals. Will the Giants get a touchdown? Their first touchdown of the year this year. It's New York minus 5.5, over under 39.5. Not really much needs to be said about the Giants' first week. It was about as bad as it could possibly go. Big goose egg on the board in MetLife Stadium. The first of 3 bad experiences for the New York fans. And then the other side, the Cardinals, they kind of went back and forth in their first game against the Commanders in week 1. Commanders ended up pulling it out, but a little bit more fire than you expected to see out of them, especially without Kyler Murray for the foreseeable future too this season. But yeah, I'm going to take the Giants in this one. I think they have more weapons on offense. I think their defense is better. I think they get the win. I think they do cover too.
Yeah, I mean, you if you're a Giants fan or coach or anybody that has anything to do with the Giants, you have got to expect a little bit more out of Daniel Jones. And I think when that game was going on, I texted you early in that one, man, Danny Dimes looks pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And then he just, as the
By
game
the time
went
you
on,
texted me that,
it was over. I mean, it came and went as quickly as that text did. And that was a rough one for the Giants. Arizona is what it is. That seems to be a dumpster fire down there with Kyler not being back for the foreseeable future. I think the Giants win this one in a game where, I don't know if much is going to happen, but I'll choose the Giants in that one.
Yeah, the Giants definitely showed that. I know turnovers are bad across the board in any facet of football, but turnovers are magnified in the NFL. You turn that ball over, there's a good chance the team's going to turn that into a score.
Yeah,
and
I mean, and
New
it's
York learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I mean these guys are too good. The NFL is way too good to turn the ball. I mean, you cannot lose the turnover margin and expect to win a game in the NFL, and that was proven last week.
Yep. Next game, a game that seemed pretty good, like a really massive game before the Aaron Rodgers injury. Jets at Cowboys. Dallas is -9. Shocked it's not a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, really sucks for the Jets, man, because their defense looks amazing. And if they had Aaron Rodgers, like the hype could have been very well warranted. But Zach Wilson, I mean, he looked all right in that game. But this week he's going against arguably the best defense in the league. Dallas looked really, really good week 1, especially on defense. Interesting to see how Dak can ruin this for him. Had to get a dig in there. But yeah, I'll take Cowboys in this one. Cowboys big.
I would like to think that the Jets still might have a sliver of a chance with Zach Wilson. You got to think that they're going to go out and make a move to get another quarterback to add some depth there. They almost have to with the way everything happened on Monday. But interestingly enough, Zach Wilson had a higher QBR than Joe Burrow and Josh Allen last week, and they did pull off that win. Shout out to the goalpost for helping him out there. But I think that provided Dak doesn't self-implode, the Cowboys should have a pretty
Jets defense could make this interesting. We'll see if Zach Wilson can not turn the ball over. I mean, it could be interesting. But yeah, I just think the Cowboys win.
Yeah, I agree.
Next, we got Commanders at Broncos. Washington kind of struggled week 1 against the Cardinals more than we thought they would. Sam Howell looked pretty good. Some other times he didn't. He took a really big hit in the first half of that one, kind of a dirty hit. I don't know if you've seen it, but neither here nor there. But Washington got the win. Broncos, they did not at home last week against the Raiders. They lost a low-scoring game. Kind of the same stuff we saw last year from the Broncos and Russell Wilson. You wonder if Russ is just really washed. But in this one, lines -3.5 Denver. I'm going to take Washington.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think their Sam Howell will continue to get better, and I think their weapons are going to be too much for the Broncos defense. And I just don't think Russ has it anymore.
Yeah, it's an interesting, situation in Denver with the way that why I can't Sean Payton with the way that Sean Payton kind of came out and beat the drum for Russell Wilson, and with how impressed, quote unquote, Coach Payton was with Russ in the offseason, and with the things that he said that he saw out of Russ. But yeah, they don't seem to have taken a step forward, like you would have expected that they would under Sean Payton. But it's still early in that experiment, and we'll see what happens there. But I agree, man. I think Washington wins this game. Sam Howell did look really good in that week 1 win that they had over Arizona. I think they'll clean up some of the mistakes that they were making on offense, and I think this one will be a bit more convincing than the week 1 win was. But I think Sam Howell continues to build momentum.
Yeah, I forgot. It's been a while since we've seen him play this much since he was at Carolina. The dude can scoot. I forgot he had some legs on him.
Yeah, he's an athlete, and he's a big kid, man. I mean, he's a big dude, and you don't want to see him taking too many hits. Obviously, that dual threat quarterback thing can be kind of tricky when you talk about mitigating hits. But then again, you got somebody like Josh Allen who seems to welcome it and run into people as opposed to run around them. But you definitely want to see him not take as many hits and be smarter with it. But yeah, the dude's an athlete.
Yeah. Moving on to the Sunday night game, Dolphins at Patriots, Miami -2.5. Miami won that offensive showcase against the Chargers this past Sunday. Tua looked really good, man. He looked really good. He's good. And Tyreek Hill looked even better.
Yeah.
That dude he's incredible. He's a weapon. He had over 200 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, caught the game-winning touchdown. Dolphins are going to be tough, man. I know the defense struggled, but they do have some playmakers over there, especially when they get Jalen Ramsey back. Patriots, they look better than expected, especially the offense against Philly. The defense under Bill Belichick, they're always going to be solid. But in this one, I know it's in New England, but I'm going to roll with the Dolphins to keep it rolling. I think they cover that -2.5 too.
Yeah, I don't really have much faith in Mac Jones. I'm not sold on him. And to your point too, Tyreek Hill is an alien. I mean, that dude is fast as lightning. He'll run away from anybody on the field. Tua look good, like you said as well. So you
get him and Jalen. If you get him and Jalen Waddle going, I don't see how you stop him.
It's tough. You're going to have to see a little bit more out of that defense. They're going to have to be able to stop somebody and keep those points off the board once you play some of the higher powered teams in the league. But yeah, I have Miami in this one too.
And then moving on to the first of 2 Monday night games. First, we got the Saints at the Panthers. New Orleans -3, over under 40. New Orleans got a ugly win against Tennessee in week 1. Derek Carr did just enough to win. The defense looked pretty good. And then Carolina, they dropped their first one at Atlanta last week. Tough loss. They lost the turnover battle 3-0. Bryce Young threw 2 interceptions. Like I said earlier, Miles Sanders had a fumble. Defense looked really good. I know the final score was 24-10, but that game really came down to losing the turnover battle. You're not going to lose. You're not going to lose the turnover battle 3-0 in the NFL and win. More often than not, you're going to lose. Bryce made some good plays. Other times, you could tell he wasn't really in sync with his receivers. He had a couple deep balls that he overthrew. One, Terrace Marshall kind of stopped running at one point, so he didn't really get it. But having DJ Chark back hopefully this week will give him that deep threat, hopefully open it up. Offensive line did good protecting him. He was only sacked twice, and that was toward the end. Here's my plug to David Tepper, if he ever hears this, pay Brian Burns.
Mm-hmm.
The dude had, in the first 2 series, he had 2 sacks and a tackle for loss. Pay him. And last week's price hitting today's price, by the way. So
with every week that goes by, and every week that he plays well like that, like you said, last week's price isn't today's price. So pay him now before it gets to be ridiculous.
Yeah, and Derek Brown, defensive tackle, he looked really, really good too. Frankie Louvu, people need to learn that name. He looked amazing too. Shaq Thompson did. Like I said, the defense looked great. Just really offense shot themselves in the foot with some turnovers. Tough loss, though, on both sides of the ball. Brady Christensen, left guard, he's ruled out for the season today. So luckily the Panthers do have pretty good depth on the offensive line. But then another one goes back to the turf. Man, J.C. Horn, no contact hamstring injury. And now it's talking about he might go on IR, possibly surgery for a significant injury. And I think you know this too. Hamstrings are one of the trickier injuries in football because you can feel fine one day and the next day it's just really bothering you. So sucks to lose J.C. Horn, man. He just can't seem to get rid of the injury bug when he's on the field. He's one of the best young corners in the league. But next man up. But just going back to the game this week, I think home opener for the Panthers. I think having DJ Chark back to give Bryce Young that deep threat. New Orleans does have a good defense, but I do think the Panthers get their first win at home, first win of Bryce Young's career, and move on to the next week.
Yeah, I think, with the Panthers, the important thing here is to develop the offense and develop the offensive identity and figure out really how you want to attack this game with Bryce Young as a quarterback. And, he's a very intelligent kid. By all accounts, that was what scouts raved about him. And the Panther scouts specifically was that the dude just knows the game. So you got to wonder how the Panthers are going to, continue to develop the offense around him. But there's weapons out there, and there's things that they can do to put Bryce in the position to win games. And then on the other side of the ball, New Orleans is a team that has, some offensive weapons as well. And it's all going to come down to the quarterback play. And both teams have solid defenses. So I'm gonna go with New Orleans in this one, unfortunately. I think they have a good defense, and I think that they can throw some things at Bryce it's going to knock him off balance a little bit. But he may prove me wrong here, and but I think that this is going to be another big step in Bryce's development, because they do have the Saints do have a pretty good front. They've got some good linebackers and good DBs too, so it's going to be a good challenge for Bryce, but I think that the Saints will squeak this one out.
And then second Monday Night Football game, we got Browns at Steelers. Could be a really good game. Cleveland's -2.5, big win last week against Cincinnati.
The Browns are back, baby.
Were they ever here?
Oh, a long time ago, but they're back, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, big win for them. Defense looked really good. Deshaun looked all right. I thought he did just enough to win. Steelers got punched in the mouth in Pittsburgh week 1. I think they're going to come out fired up, especially that defense. Mike Tomlin's going to have them fired up. But that being said, I do think the Browns win an ugly one in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football in week 2.
Yeah, it's Browns and Steelers. It's a rivalry. Neither team likes each other. Neither fan base likes each other. It's a Monday night game. It's in Pittsburgh. Those fans are going to be loud. Those god-awful towels are going to be waving. But, like you said, Deshaun looked okay. It was a bit of a messy game in Cleveland this past weekend. But, I loved what I saw out of the defense. Myles Garrett is, unblockable, it seems. They had a play where they moved him inside and he lined up, as a nose tackle almost, and just absolutely embarrassed the center on his way to the backfield. And, you couple that with Za'Darius Smith, you've got Grant Delpit, who is finally healthy and playing well. Denzel Ward, who had a good game. So, the Browns have a dangerous defense, and they have a new offense seemingly that they're putting together on the field with Deshaun Watson and the Eli Moore and some of the other guys out there, and Nick Chubb, who goes without saying. So I do think that the Browns will pull this one out, start 2-0 for the first time in forever, and continue to build some serious momentum. And, they could look to be a team that could really challenge the Bengals. After that win, I believe the Browns are either 6-1 or 7-1 against the Bengals in the last 7 or 8. So, times are looking up in Cleveland, and that's a fan base that has been waiting a long time for a winner. And McAfee mentioned it, earlier this week. That's a team that for a long time the bars in Cleveland wouldn't even open the coolers to get a bottle of beer out of there. So they've been waiting for a winner, and they've been waiting for something to party about in Cleveland, and I think it's here.
We'll see, man. They look good. The defense looks really good. It will be an ugly one, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Typical. It'll be a early 2000s looking Browns and Steelers game, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking 13-16 or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like it'll be ugly, hard hitting, low scoring. But if the Steelers are going to be a team that can put anything together this year, you got to look for them to come out and swing pretty hard in this one. And like I said, it's a rivalry game, Monday Night Football. So the Steelers aren't going to roll over, and Mike Tomlin's not going to let that happen. So, boy, wouldn't it be something if the Steelers started 0-2 and the Browns were 2-0? I don't know when the last time that happened was.
It's maybe not in our lifetime.
I don't think so. I seriously don't think so.
Yeah, but that's it for this week's NFL slate. Some good-looking games on here. Some games with potential to be some offensive shows. See if the Chiefs can bounce back. Yeah, a lot of good games on here.
Yeah, everything in the NFL is moving forward. College football is moving forward. This was another preview of the week to come in football. We look forward to bringing you this all season long. Any last thoughts moving on before we get out of here?
No, just looking forward to getting through this week. Sitting on the couch Saturday and Sunday, watching some football, and then I know next week we kind of start getting into the big college football games. So excited about that, and just keep this train rolling, man. High Street Sports to the moon.
There we go, baby. You heard it. High Street Sports to the moon. Make sure you go to our YouTube, like, comment, most importantly, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Engage with our videos. Tell us what you want to see. We are a podcast of the people. So we want to hear what you want to see. We want to see what you want to hear. We want to bring that to you the best of our abilities. We're going to be here all football season, and we're going to bring you this stuff every week. So we look forward to being here again next week. High Street Sports to the moon. Check us out.
Thanks, guys.